Happy to have you again. I heard that today again we have companies from Kenya and from Ghana. So welcome to this online masterclass titled Market Access Training, the Asian Travel Market, because today we're gonna talk about the Asian travel market. So as Caroline already mentioned, this training is provided to you by the She Trades Department of the ITC International Trade Center, as well as the Green Tour Africa project. That is a project funded by the European Commission, the Swiss Africa Green Fund. And I heard that actually some of you from Kenya are involved in the Green Tour project. Here you have the website of Ecotourism Kenya, where you can find more information about what Green Tour is all about. Actually, a summary of the Green Tour project you can see at the left-hand side of this slide. But I'm not going into detail in this one. I mean, Green Tour is pretty much about sustainability in tourism. So working with the tourism supply chain in a sustainable way, integrating sustainability in tourism policies. All right, and I think some of you might already have worked with the TravelLife Sustainability Management System. This was a training, the TravelLife training that you got in Nairobi in November 2018. That's the picture at the right-hand side. So some of you might be on the picture, I don't know. But if you want to check and know more about the Green Tour project, please go to this webpage and to know more. So who am I? Not sure if everyone of you know me. My name is Marlon. I'm from the Netherlands. I'm, as many of you, as many people in the world, working from home. So actually welcome to my kitchen / office. This is where I'm sitting right now. In the 90s, I studied tourism at the Breda University of Tourism. Then I continued my studies at the University of Amsterdam to study international relations with a link to tourism. In 2002, I entered the tourism industry. I worked as a marketing manager for the German National Tourist Board. I worked as a product manager for a large, a big company, a big tour operator here in the Netherlands. In 2007, I started working for ICIAT, which is a Dutch NGO, European Center for Eco and Agritourism, working in tourism projects all over the world. TravelLife is one of our brands, and TravelLife is a sustainability management system for tour operators and travel agents. I'm also a consultant for the ITC, as well as the CBI, the Netherlands government, and I've been working in Myanmar since 2015. And in Myanmar, but also in other countries where we have projects by the EU, I've been coaching many tourism SMEs, so companies like you, to do more business with foreign overseas markets, with a main focus on the European market. So I think some of you might have joined also the webinar that we had last March to prepare for the ITB Berlin, an event that unfortunately was cancelled. Last year, October 2019, we also had a webinar to prepare for the World Travel Market London, which this year is going to be again a virtual, fully virtual event. Like many travel trade shows this year are converted into virtual trade shows. And Caroline explained to me that also the reason for having today's webinar is because you're going to join the ITB Asia. Also a virtual event. Normally it's a physical event that takes place in Singapore, but it's going to be virtual also this year because of the COVID. So training objectives for today's webinar. After this webinar, I hope that you have acquired some good knowledge about Asia's leading source markets. We're going to look at 6 countries. What are the differences? What are commonalities? What do they like? Trends and developments. How to access these Asian countries. What can you do? Very important, understand the importance of research first. Then we're talking about market intelligence, having access to quality data to have a good understanding of a country, of an Asian country, can be European country. More about that later on. Also, I hope that based on the knowledge that I am going to share with you today, that after this webinar, you have improved understanding about how to align your products with market demand. So how to develop, let's say, successful programs, tool programs in Kenya or Ghana that fits, that match the needs of the Asian markets. And last but not least, I hope that you will have a better understanding about how to access these countries, these Asian countries. So what distribution channels, what sales channels to make use of. And then we talk about doing direct business, B2C, but also working B2B wise, so business to business with these Asian countries that we are going to look at. All right, so some house rules. Caroline already mentioned some things. Please put yourself on mute, but you're all on mute. Questions, I'm a bit flexible with that. So we'll see how that will go. I think after each session, we can have a short break and I can reply to questions. Also for your questions, feel free to use the chat box. So Caroline can look into it and then maybe interrupt and say, hey, Marlon, there's an important question. Please answer. Also, if you have technical issues, you can use the chat box. And also for you, I think some of you already deal with Asian countries, in the business. So also feel free to share your knowledge in the chat box about the Asian markets. Okay, so these are the 9 sessions that we will have. Session 1 is about crisis management and scenarios. Second session, introduction to the Asian travel market. These are the higher level trends, so to speak. Then we're gonna look into the 6 countries, China, Thailand, Japan, Korea, Singapore, and India. And then finally, we do a Q&A at the end, and I'm gonna explain you about the next steps. All right. So any questions so far? Everything clear? All right, if you have a question, again, please use the chat box. All right, session 1, crisis management and scenarios. Well, I think I don't have to explain a lot about this slide, what it means. We're all in the COVID era right now. Yesterday on the Netherlands national television, another semi-lockdown has been announced. So all the restaurants, all the cafes, as per today, I think 6 p.m. have to close their doors for at least 2 weeks. Lockdowns in many countries. Traveling is difficult. Countries being put on red, for example, means you cannot travel. The COVID, it's a tough thing, but the tourism industry is also resilient, and we've always been like that. And if we can afford to weather the storm, we want to be ready for it. All right. So this is a slide that I wanted to share with you because these are the 4 steps of crisis management. The first step is mitigation, which is about what to do now. The second step of crisis management, why is this not disappearing? All right. Sorry for that. The second step of crisis management is preparedness. So you have to prepare when travel resumes. You have to work on a strategy. And this is the preparedness stage is actually the preparing to move on to the response stage and the recovery stage. Okay, I'm not going into too much detail about that because I'm going to share with you a manual in which these different steps of the crisis management process are explained. As I mentioned already in the introduction, I work a lot in Myanmar since 2015, and with the 23 Myanmar companies, the tour operators that I'm coaching over there, we have been working on crisis management because of the COVID. And I think, like many countries all over the world, national governments, ministries of tourism, etc., are working on their response. They are preparing their response, and they are making like a roadmap for tourism recovery. And for example, this is the example for Myanmar. They have defined or formulated like 3 stages. A survival stage, which is more about mitigation, what to do now. Second step, reopening phase, where there's a focus on domestic travel, because domestic travel is always the market that will bounce back first when travel resumes. And the third step for Myanmar is regional travel bubbles. So after the domestic market, it's always the regional travel market that bounces back. So 1 domestic, 2 regional, and after that, it's the international European travel market that will come back to your country. So domestic market, very important as number 1, regional market. That doesn't say that you should be fully focusing on these. Huh? So when we talk about regional travel market, for you, it's about intra-African tourism. At this stage, also make sure that you maintain your relationships, your linkages with the overseas, the international travel market. So if you do business with Europe, B2B wise, make sure that you maintain your relationship with your European business partners. There are some companies that think, well, forget about the international markets, the international business linkages, because I'm going to focus on the domestic market now, or maybe the regional market. I think this is a mistake. Even in this time of COVID, you need, again, to maintain your relationship with the international travel market. And this can, for you, for example, be Asian business linkages. So you have to inform them what is going on in your country, what am I doing, asking also the right questions. What about the people in Japan? You know, how are things going right now? And when travel resumes, what are their needs? Will there be differences? And we're also going to speak more about that later on. But make sure that you don't forget about the international market. All right, the ITC is working in Myanmar, but also other projects with the CBI. The CBI is an agency of the Netherlands Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and the CBI has a great tourism market intelligence platform with a lot of high quality data about tourism in Europe, etc. And recently they published 2 new reports about how you as a tourism business, as an SME business, can deal with the COVID crisis. So these are 2 reports that I wanted to share with you. You can check it, it's very useful. So please make use of it. Another thing that we did as ITC, but also as the CBI, is that we developed a crisis manual for tour operators. It was focused on Myanmar, but I mean, you're also a tour operator. So what I'm going to do also after this webinar is that I'm going to share this crisis manual with you. So you can look at it and make sure you make some good steps during this crisis. All right, so tourism scenarios. What is the scenario for Kenya? What is the scenario for Ghana? The slide that I'm sharing with you right now is from McKinsey Research, and it is focused on, again, on Myanmar. And as you can see, domestic travel starts up first. After that, the regional market and recovery of international demand will come latest. And for Myanmar, it is expected that the European market, the international market, comes back end of 2022. So it's going to be, that's really going to take a while. Before that, there might be some Europeans that travel back that travel to Myanmar once the flights are there. But these will be more the adventurous European travelers. And this might also be the case for your country. I mean, younger, adventure European travelers, they have more guts, they can take some risks, and they might be prepared to come back first to your country. After that, it's most of the times it's business travel that comes back. So think about that. So what about the scenario for your country? Look into it. And again, we need, and this is what I hope to do in this webinar, what about the PCE, so the post-COVID era? How will it look like? I mean, COVID is turning the whole things upside down, and it has an impact on all of us, not only Asian travelers, but also African travelers, European travelers, all of us. Things are going to change. So this is a bit of a summary of what travel tourism experts say about the post-COVID era. When we come out of the crisis, there will be no international traffic for a while. Again, domestic tourism will come back first and fast. After that, the regional markets will bounce back. So what do they say? What do they give as an advice? Create programs for the locals and regional source markets. But it's a choice. For example, the Myanmar companies, some of them that I'm coaching, they say, yeah, but you know, the domestic travel market, for me, this is not my cup of tea. I'm not really familiar with the local market. And besides, the profit margins are very low. So I don't want to have the domestic market as my new revised strategy. I prefer to focus on regional source markets. But again, these are things that you need to start thinking about. What is your scenario? What is your way forward? Okay, what experts also say, local explorations is going to be popular. Discovering your own city or a city in the other area, other region of your country. Small group tours, authentic and adventure travel experiences will grow, will become more popular. Own and private tours, tech-guided tours, mobile apps will be used, self-drive tours. Terms and conditions, cancellation policy. In next week's webinar, I'm gonna tell a little bit more about that. This is very, very important for you. You have to work on this right now if you haven't done it yet. Because of the COVID, I mean, when travel resumes and how we can start traveling to Kenya or to Ghana again, there will always be a bit of uncertainty in the world because of the COVID. What's going to happen if I'm in Kenya or in Ghana and things change? There will be a new like small outbreak or whatever. What about cancellation of my trip? What about repatriation? But also nowadays, we expect tour operators, consumers, but also your business partners to be more flexible. You have to adjust and make your terms and conditions and your cancellation policy more flexible. In the manual that I'm going to share with you, there's an example of a terms and conditions / cancellation policy of South Africa. It's a best practice. And it's being used by a lot of companies these days because it shows the increase, the more flexibility that they are offering because of the uncertain conditions that we are now living in because of the COVID. Okay, another thing, info, hygiene and safety issues. Because of the COVID, there are a lot of questions about what about your hotels in Kenya? What about your transportation suppliers or providers in Ghana? What are they doing in terms of hygiene and safety, being COVID proof? Again, what about the transportation? Will it be safe? What about you as a tour operator based in Kenya? What are you doing with your own staff? These are things that people want to know in advance before they walk with you, before they travel with you. Not only write about these things on your website, but also show pictures like proof. Some very successful tour operators these days, they put videos on their websites to tell the world, to tell their business partners, to tell the consumers about, hey, look at our video. This is what is going on in our country in terms of safety measurements. We have national guidelines, safety guidelines for being COVID proof for different kinds of tourism businesses. And I know that you in Kenya have these as well. We have a tourism safety stamp. This is very important for you to communicate online, in email, etc. What else? Cleanliness will be addressed a lot. Okay, I already explained that. Budget-friendly activities post-crisis. Well, because of the COVID, you know, the economic situation, the economic recession will be there. So people have limited budgets, have less money to spend, so they will be more price sensitive when they book their holidays. And they might even reduce the number of holidays that they take annually. Sustainability and social responsibility. As I mentioned to you at the beginning, some of you are in the, in the Green Tour project. Sustainability and being a social responsible tour operator is something that will work well for consumers. Last but not least, tourism, safety labels and stamps. It's going to be very important. Somehow that gives insurance to people. It's to build trust. I know that in Kenya, you have your national guidelines for tour operators, and these guidelines or protocols or criteria, how you want to call them, have been aligned with the tour operator criteria from the World Tourism and Travel Council, the WTTC. That is a very clever step that you take or took. So that means that when you comply with your national Kenya tour operator criteria, the checklist that you have, you will also automatically have the safe travels stamp from the WTTC. That's the picture that you see over there. And that is something that you can communicate to the people, to your business partners, to your consumers. Like, hey, listen, we as a tour operator, we comply with the safety stamp, the Kenya tour operator safety stamp, and we also have the safe travel stamps from the WTTC. And for those of you that are in the Green Tour project, I think that is also something that will be offered to you so that you can go online. It's linked to the Travel Life system, and you can complete the Kenya checklist and also automatically work on these WTTC safety criteria that you have, that are there. All right. So what about the scenarios for Ghana and Kenya? What are you going to do? Are you going to look into the domestic travel market? Are you going to look into the regional travel market? I know for the domestic market that your governments, so both Ghana and Kenya, you have already started to promote domestic tourism in the past. Is that something that you're going to build on as a strategy? Or again, regional travel markets, so intra-African travel? What are you going to do? But again, as I mentioned, do not ignore the international travel market. So domestic and regional travel markets, sure, they bounce back first. After that, the international market, but make sure you maintain your relationships with the overseas markets as well. Because if you don't, and travel resumes, you might simply miss the boat. Okay, this is a slide that I use a lot. And if you're not taking anything from this webinar today, please, please, please remind this one. What a lot of companies do is, I mean, you're all experts, you know your country very well, you know your regions, you do your scouting very well, and you start to develop products. You make very nice programs, and then you start to look for the market. And sometimes that might work and you might sell your product. But most of the times it doesn't work like that. The first step, if you're entering into new markets, you first have to have a good knowledge, a good understanding about what is going on in this country, what is going on in Japan, what about the trends and developments, what about market segments. Market intelligence is very important. And actually, this is what we're doing today. I'm going to give you market intelligence about 6 Asian source markets. And based on that, I hope that you can define some strategies, provided of course that you want to work with the Asian travel market. All right, so what is your plan? What I also did for the companies that I'm coaching in Myanmar is that I made a document that contains some very easy questions for you to formulate a strategy for the domestic travel market, if you want to work with that, the regional travel market. So in your case, that's African countries. But the template for the regional travel market is also a template that you can use for the international markets, so the far away, the long haul markets. And I'm going to adjust it a bit for you. I will share it with you as well. So you can use this document if you want to go through these questions, and based on the market intelligence that I share with you today, that you can formulate your strategy for the Asian market. And when we do the webinar about the European market, that you can also, if you want, use it to formulate your strategy for the European market. Okay, so this was actually the first session. So I now want to go to session number 2, which is the introduction to the Asian travel market. But maybe have a 2-minute short break, and please also use it to put if you have any questions, to put questions into the chat box. And then maybe Caroline, you can, if there are any questions, you can mention to me. So 2 minutes, a bit short, but there's a lot to tell today. I have to tell you a lot. Okay, short break.
If anyone has any questions so far, you can just unmute yourself, or you can, of course, post your questions on the chat and I can read them out.
All right, do we have any questions?
Not, we have a question from Francisca. She's asking, do you have stats on Asian market numbers to the region over the past 5 years on a year-on-year basis?
You mean like Asian travelers to
Yes,
Africa or to Kenya?
I guess to Africa.
I don't have them here in my office, but I could search for these. But I think this is also something that you could find yourself by, I don't know if your Ministry of Tourism, for example, publishes the number of incoming tourists annually. Where they have like a breakdown of the different nationalities that come into your country. Or if your Ministry of Tourism doesn't have it, there's like most of the times like a national statistics agency that you have that are dealing with that. So yeah. But I could look into if I can find some numbers for Kenya and Ghana. I will write it down. Okay, if there's no further questions, maybe I have a question for you. Maybe you can put it in the chat box. How many of you already receive guests from Asia? So maybe you can put it in the chat box, and maybe also if you have Asian guests, what is the biggest group? So maybe Japan or China or maybe India, I don't know. Maybe you can put that in the chat box, and maybe then Caroline, you can share with me because I can't see the chat box. Let me see if I can, here's the chat. Okay. So again, how many of you already receive guests from, okay, here I see a family of 6 from China. Okay, family travel, I see from China. Nice. Other people? No Asian guests, Catherine? Anyone receive guests from Japan, maybe? No? I received a group, 23 from China. All right, India. I see a lot of China, India. So we're gonna speak about both countries. Good. All right, Japan, all right, good. Japan, also interesting. India, I see Japan and China, all right, good. So there's experience out there, I see, very good. China, India again, India, all right, good. Nice, thanks. All right, we're going to the second session. All right, now it's not moving, my presentation. Yes, so we're gonna look later on in China, Thailand, Japan, Korean, Singaporean, and the Indian market. All right, so the Asian markets is putting the whole world upside down. Asian travelers drive change across the whole world. And I put 9, let's call it like main trends, main developments that we have in the Asian outbound travel market. First of all, the Chinese dragon. I mean, China is exploding. And we're going to look at the numbers later on, but China is nowadays almost somewhere between 170 and 200 million travelers annually per annum. And this is growing and growing and growing. Also, the Chinese are driving the whole technical development in the tourism industry with travel and tech leaders such as Ctrip, Alipay, WeChat, very important. We're going to talk about that later. So the whole technical thing is also driven by the Chinese. Emerging India, the planet's second fastest growing outbound market. You know, rapidly following China, and at some point, I wouldn't be surprised if India is going to be the #1. I mean, nowadays it's China, but India is really growing very fast, with some interesting niche segments also that are growing in India, including extended family travel, MICE, and a very funny one is destination weddings. So honeymoon travel in India is popular. All right, diversity of destinations. This is what I'm actually, Asia is, you know, like Africa, like Europe, many countries, many different culture, many different languages. There's a lot of diversity, but there's also commonalities, and we will talk about that later on. If you want to work with the Asian travel market, you need to know about what's going on and diversify your products, your tool programs based on the needs of the market segment that you're going to focus on. All Access Africa. The air connections between Asia and Africa have improved a lot, and there is interest of the Asian travelers in African destinations. And this is also very visible during ITB, editions of the ITB, editions of the World Travel Market, where you see that, you know, there's a very strong representation of African countries in these Asian travel trade shows because of the demand for Africa. So very interesting. Another interesting thing that you see in the Asian markets is what we call the MMT, the Muslim Millennial Traveler. This is a big group of Asian travelers, Muslims, that are traveling around the world. And in 2016, there were 121 million Muslim travelers. And this, there's an interesting report. I will share that one with you later on that you could look into. But this is another interesting Asian market segment or a group of travelers that maybe could be interesting for you. 6, tech-savvy Asians. Asians are really tech-savvy people. Internet penetration is very high. Smartphone usage. They have like very advanced, like for example, the Chinese, they use WeChat a lot, very advanced application, much more advanced than for example, WhatsApp or Facebook, for example, the two things that we're using here a lot in Europe. Okay, Asian niche segments. Asian countries are, you know, the tourism industry is maturing. It's not anymore about the big groups, the Asian groups that sometimes people make fun of. A lot of things are going on. Markets are getting more mature, and niche segments are popping up. And you need to be aware of this to make sure you grab your piece of the pie. Product diversification. Okay, this is related to new segments that are developing. Interesting also for you when looking into the Asian market is to look how maybe you can extend your season. So you have your high season in Kenya, you have your high season in Ghana, but how can you work with the Asian travel market beyond or outside of the high tourism season that you have? There might be interesting opportunities. And last but not least, keep your eyes on the rise of the Asian millennials, a group that is growing very fast. This is the group of tech-savvy young people, young Asians. And there's one very interesting report from the UNWTO. You have the picture at your right-hand side. You can look at the website of the UNWTO. But this is a very interesting Asian market segment as well, of young people that start to travel more and more to long-haul destinations. So interesting. And these Asian millennials, they also are interesting into local experiences. So they offer opportunities for rural destinations, rural experiences in Kenya, in Ghana, in your countries. All right, so what do you know about the Asian travel markets? As I mentioned, there are commonalities between countries, but there are also differences. And for example, this slide shows you the differences between selected Asian countries concerning their key travel periods. And you need to be aware of that. And as I mentioned, you have your high season for tourism. But if you look at these countries that you have, 1, 2, 3, 5 countries that you have here, is there maybe an opportunity, based also on what I'm going to tell you more, to extend your season and maybe work with the Indian market in your off-season period? So interesting. And the commonalities, we're also going to look to that. So what about your own market intelligence for the Asian travel markets? I mean, in the chat box, many of you mentioned, well, I already had Chinese guests, some had Indian guests, I saw Japanese guests. What do you know about these people? Do you have a customer satisfaction survey that these Asian guests completed, filled out? What can you learn from that? What kind of tour programs did they purchase from you? Do they have specific preferences concerning activities in Kenya or in Ghana? What about the accommodations that they stayed in? Is it like 3-star, or do they want very high-end luxury like 5-star hotels in your country? What can you learn from that? Some companies that I meet with, they don't have a customer survey, and this is really a missed opportunity, because from customer survey satisfaction forms, you can really learn a lot. So look critically at yourself. Did you store any market intelligence data, because that is what we're talking about, from these Asian guests that you had in the past from India, Japan, and China? Do you have it? What can you learn from it? Use these inputs. That is very important. So, any questions? Let me know. You please use the chat box. No? No questions, Caroline?
No questions so far.
I hope that is a good sign that everything is clear. Or okay, so then we move to China, the Chinese travel market. The #1 in the world, the number of Chinese outbound trips from 2010 to 2018 is what you see on this slide. In 2010, there were 57 million outbound trips. 4 years later, this has doubled. In 2015, there were 116 million Chinese outbound trips. And if you look at 2018, it's already like 150 million border crossings. So the Chinese market is a huge, huge market, which is not, you know, they have like, I don't know, more than 1 billion people living there. And they start to travel more and more, also because middle class is growing fast. So when do the Chinese travel? That is important to know. There are some peak periods, but not many holidays. So you have the Chinese New Year, which is in February. October, the Golden Week. This is 1 week long when they start to travel abroad, and the holidays when the kids are off school. Then they have 3-day weekends now and then, but that is not possible to travel abroad, so they stay close to home. So important for you to know, because then you can decide about, you know, what's the best time to offer programs for the Chinese travel market. The Chinese are the #1 spenders of the world. Well, here you see the orange line. These are the Chinese. The green, the blue one is the United States. After that, we have the Germans. They spend actually the same as the American people. So the Chinese, again, the #1 spending market. But is this something that you should be too much concentrating on? Because I think as a tour operator based in Kenya and in Ghana, you need to go one step further here. I mean, of course, they spend a lot because there are many people, the volume is high. But for you as a tour operator, it's about your profit margins, right? So what could be more interesting to know is the average spending per Chinese traveler. This is much more interesting for you to know. For example, this picture that you see here, other destinations in the world, they say, oh, we need to focus on China. You know, they spend a lot. But then I say, okay, but be aware that in China, it's a very young market and we still have these very big groups. But they don't bring you a lot of profit, and we're gonna talk about that later on. So sometimes it's even more interesting for you as a tour operator to have, for example, 20 European bird watching travelers. That is more interesting compared to having a group of 200 Chinese travelers. Because simply these 20 European bird watching travelers, the profit margin that is much higher than this group of Chinese tourists. So you need to look further. Okay, so again, the #1 spenders of the world. This is a slide that I took from the UNWTO from 2017. All right. But again, look further and you'll be higher. I mean, this can be interpreted in different ways, but I added this slide because, again, for you, it's about profit margins. That is important. And a problem that many countries are facing right now with the Chinese market is what is known as $0 tourism. Chinese tourists flock into the country, but actually the tour operators, the inbounds like you, are not making any profit out of it. And that is because the whole tourism supply chain is owned by the Chinese. At the left-hand side, this is the normal modus, but the right-hand side is what is still going on a lot in the Chinese tourism market. So the Chinese, they spend the money in China, they pay the tour operator, they travel to Kenya, to Ghana, they stay in the hotel, it's owned by the Chinese, they go on forced shopping, what you sometimes see, to Chinese businesses located in the country, and actually no money stays in the country, in your country. And that is what is called the $0 tourism that you still see. I think more and more countries are realizing that, and they say like, okay, you know, we need to look further into the Chinese market and changes are going on. Maybe it's better to focus on Chinese tourists that have more money to spend, but also that they leave more money into our country. And for example, this is the famous shopping mall here in Amsterdam. It's called the Bijenkorf. And this shopping mall, they, in line with the policy of the city of Amsterdam regarding the Chinese travel market, is that this shopping mall is now like focusing on the Chinese high-end luxury traveler. So the Chinese traveler that have more to spend. And they changed the concept a bit of the shopping mall to cater for the needs of the Chinese traveler. And this is what a bit of the trend that is going on right now, is that more and more countries are looking into the second wave of Chinese travelers, because that is what we are talking about. The first wave of Chinese travelers is these, what we know as mass market package tours, first time travelers, low price, sightseeing, and known as the $0 tourism. But as I mentioned earlier, Asian source markets, travel markets, are developing rapidly and are getting more and more mature. And this is what's going on right now in the Chinese travel market. It's getting more mature, and new segments, new niche segments as well, are starting to develop. Middle class is growing very fast. Youngsters start to travel, etc. And what you see is that more and more Chinese are getting interested in leaving the beaten track. Peripheral destinations, new off the beaten track destinations. This is what they are increasingly looking into when traveling abroad. New destinations, smaller cities, authentic activities, clean nature is what they're looking at. Culture and stories is what they are increasingly interested in. So they are looking for new kicks, lifestyle affirmation. It's less about shopping, this first wave group that we have. Again, culture and stories to tell. And one of the things that Chinese are very, very interested in is history of a country. They want to learn about the history of your country. They want to listen to the stories, to the anecdotes. And for example, many years ago, when I was in the Gambia, which is close to Ghana in Western Africa, is that I went to a place where a father and son were playing music, but they were also singing and telling stories about the history of the Gambia. And this is also something that potentially could work for the Chinese travelers. So they have a growing adventurous spirit and a desire to learn from the world. All right, so new segments and age groups that are coming up. So again, we're still talking about the second wave. And in the second wave, each one of you can find the right niche, the right group of travelers that you can sell to. Chinese niche markets are huge. Some of them are just as big as domestic markets in other countries, in your country. More open to suggestions, but also more confident and more demanding than ever. So these, let's say, like second wave Chinese travelers, they are more demanding. They have a better knowledge of English language. So for you as a tourism business, this is important to know, because to satisfy this second wave of travelers, you need to be more understanding. You need to provide more information, more details, more exciting off the beat track and off the beaten track destinations, for example, more nature. And these second wave Chinese tourists, travelers, they want to be treated as international citizens, and they want you to show respect to their culture. So this is very important for you to approach the new second wave of Chinese travelers. So let's have a look at some of these new Chinese groups that are popping up, that are growing. This is family with 2 children. Family travel is getting more and more popular, but also taking along the grandparents. So this is what we call like 3-generation travel. This is an interesting market in China that you could further look into. Family travel is really getting popular, especially among the urban families that have more money to spend. And what they want is to offer their kids a meaningful experience. So they want the kids to have an interesting, they want that their kid learn from your country, the history of Kenya, the stories from Ghana. This is what they are looking for. What you also see in the Chinese travel market, summer and soccer camps are growing, English classes are getting more popular for the kids. Parents go play golf and shopping, popular, and accommodation in nature is getting increasingly popular. So one of the accommodation types that could work for the Chinese family is, for example, eco-lodges. And you have them in Ghana, you have them in Kenya. So think about that. All right, this is a kid from China. Her name is Achi, which means lovely. But as you can see, she doesn't look very lovely. Actually, she's not very happy. And do you know why? Okay, I'm gonna show you. She's telling me we visited too many historical places, too much walking, too much climbing. I don't like it. I'm suffering from history overkill. I wanted to have a bike tour. I wanted to play and have ice cream. The food in our hotel is really weird. It doesn't taste very nicely. There's no swimming pool in the hotel. I'm angry and I'm tired. I want to go home. This girl is somewhere in the world, but she's not having a really good travel experience that fits her needs. If you, as a Kenyan or Ghanese tour operator company, if you're going to work with the family travel market from China or from Japan, it doesn't matter. You need to know what you are doing, because family travel is something different. You really need to know what you are doing. If the holiday is not fun for kids, it's gonna be hell for the parents and the grandparents if you're talking about three-generation travel. You need to develop the right products and put the kid central of the experience. Timing is very important. They need to eat on time. They want to play on time. And you have to offer also activities so they can get rid of their energy, but at the right time. Don't put these kids on a bike when the sun is burning, like between 1200 hours or 1500 hours in the afternoon. It's too hot. They want to have a nap. So timing is very important. If you work with the family travel market and you offer accommodations without a swimming pool, it's going to be a disaster. If you work with families, the hotel, the accommodation has to have a pool and a safe swimming pool, because I like you, I travel, well, not now, but normally. Swimming pools need to be safe. So no sharp edges. Where you have the deep area, fences should be there because of the safety. Food, again, offer the right food that these kids can have. So be very selective when concerning your accommodations when you work with the family travel market. And what adds value for the parents and the grandparents is, I believe, that during the night, you have an accommodation where you can have some relaxation, maybe sauna, spa, etc. So the kids are put to bed, and then it's the parents and the grandparents who can have more time for themselves without the kids. So I think that is the way how to work successfully with family travel market. Okay, what else? Chinese youngsters and students more and more traveling. abroad and they like to travel in July and August. So how does that relate to the tourism business in Kenya? What about Ghana? What about you? What about July and August? What do you have, you know? And these young people, again, they're like very tech savvy. And on the left-hand side, you see the big online travel agents that they are making use of to book their trip. So you have Ctrip, Kunar, Elong, Fliggy, that's the travel service platform from the Alibaba group. That is what they are making use of. And if you want to reach out, if you want to penetrate into this market, you need to have visibility on these online travel agents, online travel OTA platforms. Okay, another segment that is growing is that more and more Chinese women are starting to travel. A very interesting trend. Women make up 56% of the Chinese outbound travel markets. So that's the main part. 44 by men. Again, Chinese online travel platforms, OTAs, is what these Chinese female travelers make use of. It's different from the previous slide that I showed to you. For these, it's Mafengwo, it's Tuni. I can share with you these names later on because I forgot to put them here. So I will share with you these OTAs that these Chinese women travelers are making use of. All right, so what I explained to you earlier is that the Chinese are hungry to learn about your country, history, stories, anecdotes. They want to experience the local culture. So this offers potential for you to look into community-based tourism experiences in your country, in Kenya and in Ghana. But think about what else can you offer in Kenya and Ghana to serve the needs of the Chinese travelers that are, you know, increasingly interesting in authentic experiences, local culture. What about visiting local markets? Because this is actually what this picture is all about. What about cooking classes? It might be interesting for you to work on, and it could be successful for the Chinese market. So how to reach the Chinese travelers, give the right reasons to come to your country, novelty, exclusivity, the connection to China. If there's a history with China and your country, then share it with them. Endorsement by celebrities. Chinese are very sensitive to reviews or videos from celebrity bloggers saying, hey, listen, I'm here in Kenya, if I've been in Kenya, or if I've been in Ghana. It's a fantastic country. Look at this, you know, the great experience that I'm having right now or that I had. They're very sensitive to that. Social media, okay, more about that later on. So Chinese celebrity bloggers is a way, for example, to reach out to Chinese travelers. But China is also the most digital nation in the world. And I want you to look at this website because it contains a lot of great tips to target Chinese tourists online. And I'm not going through all of them because it's quite a lot. But working with the Chinese market, it's different. First of all, they don't have Facebook, for example. They are not using Google. They are using Baidu. Baidu is the most popular search engine in China. So if you want to rank high in Chinese search jobs, for example, then Baidu is something that you need to work on. So also in terms of SEO, Baidu is very important. Okay, let me be a bit selective here. Weibo is a mix of Twitter and Facebook. Also, Weibo is something that the Chinese are using a lot. And also for Weibo, you can do search engine optimization. KOL campaigns. As I mentioned to you, the Chinese are very sensitive to stories or reviews from important celebrity, VIP bloggers, influencers like that. And KOL campaigns, that is number 9, stands for Key Opinion Leader Campaigns. And this is what we're talking about here. So key opinions, so Chinese famous bloggers, celebrity, whatever, VIPs, KOL campaigns is something that is very effective for reaching out to Chinese consumers. But again, look at this website that you have here to learn more from how to work digitally to penetrate the Chinese market. Last but not least, WeChat. And the next slide is about WeChat. If you're not on WeChat, you are not going to be successful in the Chinese market. WeChat is a Chinese multi-purpose messaging, social media, and mobile payment application. It's the #1 social platform in China. They have more than 1.2 billion users. No WeChat, no Chinese market for you. As a business, as a foreign business, you can advertise on WeChat. There are different types of advertisements: moment ads, banner ads, mini program ads. You can create a WeChat account. It's a bit of a long process. You need to, provide a lot of documents, etc., etc. But if you seriously intended to conquer the Chinese market, it is really worthwhile to do. So WeChat is something that you have to work with the Chinese market. All right, then we're going to the next slide. Working B2B, so working business to business with the Chinese market. So you, as a Kenyan inbound or Ghanese inbound, working with Chinese outbound travel agents. There are some big, huge, leading China outbound tour operators like CTS, like CITS, China International Travel Service. There's CYTS for youth travel. So these are the big players in the market, the well-established ones. Most of the times they already have their incoming partners in different destinations in the world. But there are more agencies in China that have the outbound travel license. In 2017, 1,600 travel agents in China were licensed to operate outbound travel. I don't have the numbers for 2020 right now, but this must have tripled or maybe even more, because the outbound travel market, as you could have seen in the previous slide, is really like booming in China. So how to connect with these Chinese outbound tour operators, your potential business partners? Well, they're like different travel trade shows all over China. And COTTM, for example, that is a travel trade show for China outbound travel and the tourism market. That first took place in 2004. It's interesting and an event that is primarily catering for the Beijing area and North China. ITB China, that one started in 2017. The ITB China is going to be, the next edition is going to be, I think it's April or May 2021. So this is also, if you're interested to reach out to get connected to Chinese outbound tour operators, ITB Asia or China, sorry, could be interesting for you. If you are a Kenyan or a Ghanese tour operator that is more into the high end, into the luxury travel market, then the ILTM China, that is this one, could maybe be a more interesting choice for you, because ILTM is the international luxury travel market. So during the ILTM China, you will have all the Chinese luxury travel agents over there, really looking for the best products, the most expensive hotels, luxury. So ILTM, interesting for you. The World Travel Market Asia, the ITB Asia that you're all going to join, this is also platforms, shows where you can find Chinese outbound tour operators that could be your potential business partner. But there are also many other smaller events in other Chinese cities. I mean, again, China is a huge country. The previous slide showed you the famous travel trade shows, but there's much more out there. You don't necessarily need to go, but you know, there's a lot of things that you can do online, and this is also what you're going to do for the ITB Asia. When you're going to work with the Chinese market, you really need to have like a clear focus, because it's a huge country. So where are you going to focus on? What area, what market segment, and what Chinese travel trade shows do fit best with what I'm going to do for the Chinese market? Clearly focus and have a strategy. The language issue for China is still a sensitive thing. So when you are going to Chinese trade shows and you don't speak the Chinese language, it's good to have an interpreter with you, a translator who can help you with well, the language. Okay, I mean, you will get my slides after the webinar. I put some essential reads, web links that I really advise you to look into. So look into this. This is also an interesting report from the PATA. What role will Chinese outbound travel play in post-crisis travel? So make use of these essential reads. This one is like a checklist on how to do business with the Chinese market. Also Chinese travel trends you can read. It's from Tracksoft. Tracksoft is a very interesting platform to get high quality tourism market intelligence. So make use of these essential reads. Okay, any questions about the Chinese travel market? Because if not, I would like to move to Thailand. So if you have questions, please put them into the chat box, and then Caroline, maybe if there's a question, you can let me know. Are things clear? Or maybe I go too fast? Please feel free to put your comments in the chat box.
No questions so far.
All right, good. All right, then let's move on to the next Asian source market, which is Thailand. All right, good. So this is the figure that I have for the Thai outbound travel market from 2011 until 2017. So in 2017, more than 9 million Thai people traveled abroad. growing, interesting outbound travel market. The Thai outbound travel market is anticipated to grow over US 15 billion US dollar by the year 2025, which is an impressive growth rate because of the COVID. I mean, these were numbers that actually were from last year. So we need to keep an eye. I mean, this counts for all the markets, what the impact of the COVID actually is going to be on the outbound travel behavior. But Thailand is emerging as a strong source of outbound travel. So in 2016, 8.2 million Thai people traveling abroad. So when do the Thai people travel? They follow the school holiday months. So March, April, May is when a lot of Thai people choose to travel abroad. And the second, focus during the year is the month of October. So this is when they travel abroad. So again, how does this relate to the tourism business in Kenya and Ghana? So what do they spend? I already mentioned that. Spending quite good, anticipated to grow, 2025. Okay, the age groups. So seniors, people older than 45, they make up 35% of the market. The biggest slice is taken by the people between 25 and 44 years old. That is also almost half of the market, 49%. Something interesting about the Thai market here as well is that the Thai holidaymakers like to go on holidays with the family. So also family travel abroad to long-haul destinations is something that is interesting. Also, the Thai travel market is getting more mature, like the Chinese outbound travel market. Remember about this second wave that I explained to you for the Chinese market. So the Thai market is shifting from a mass market, flag following group tours, to more specialized, selective niche customer segments, willing to spend more, provided that the right experience is being offered to them. So let's look into some of the Thai segments that are interesting for you to look into. Thai senior travelers. The Thai market, like the Japanese market, is a rapidly aging society, and more these people start to travel abroad. They have the time, they have the money, sometimes has very good retirement or pension schemes, so they have money to spend. So the Thai senior travel market is an interesting group to further look into. I already mentioned about family travel. Thai like to travel with the family. And remember what I told you when we were talking about the Chinese market. Dealing with the family travel market is something different. You really need to know what you are doing. An interesting fact for the Thai senior people, as well as the Thai families, is that there's an above average interest in cruise tourism, so the big boats. So interesting for you to also keep into consideration. Very interesting group. In Thailand, there's a fast growing expat community. International schools offering opportunities for school trips, study tours, exchange programs, holidays and meetings. If this, I don't know, I haven't checked your profiles, but maybe some of you might be experiences with youth and student travel or student exchange programs. Last week, there was a very interesting event for youth and student travel. Maybe some of you know the International Umbrella Organization for Youth and Student Travel called WYSE, W-Y-S-E. As a tour operator, you can become a member of WYSE and you will have access to other businesses that are dealing with the market for student and youth travel. So this is a specific thing for the Thai travel market, this growing expat community within Thailand offering these abroad experiences for youth and students. All right, so how to reach them? I think I have to speed up a little bit because we have more countries to look into. It's a bit specific for the Thai market here. Radio popular, but might be very expensive to invest in. A lot of tourism advertisements in Thailand is being done in the Bangkok metro system, TV channels, programs on tourism. Also newspapers and magazines is what they are looking to get inspired for their next travel destination. For example, Check Tour, D Plus Guides, that's a magazine. Working with a professional PR company might work very well if you want to penetrate the Thai market. So different kinds of channels to reach out to the consumer. So make sure you're on social media if you want to work with the Thai travel market. Facebook, very popular in many Asian countries. But if you want to work like B2B, so again, if you want to reach out to Thai outbound tour operators, there are two tour operator associations that you should be looking into. First of all, the big one, the Thai Travel Agent Association, the TTAA, their members cover 80% of the outbound travel market, and they have the member directory online. So you can easily see who the Thai outbound tour operators are. You have the link here. The only thing is that it doesn't make sense to contact all of them. You really have to profile them. So you have to shortlist and check, are they already selling to Africa? Are they already active in Kenya? And if they're active, what are they offering? Can I add to that? Maybe I can become their second inbound agent for Kenya. You really have to do profiling and do your homework before you start to reach out to a potential business partner in Thailand or whatever country in Asia or whatever country into the world. The second tour operator association that they have in Thailand is an interesting one. It's the Thai Eco and Adventure Travel Association. So this is about ecotourism. It's about adventure travel. And also they have their member directory online. But again, do the profiling first. If you're a Kenyan or a Ghanese tour operator active into community-based tourism experiences, eco travel, safari, adventure travel, then the members of the TEATA could be interesting business leads for you. Then the main travel trade shows, Thailand International Travel Fair, the leading outbound travel show. You have the website there. The Thai Travel Mart, the TTM is now been replaced this year by the TTVM virtual platform. And I think as a foreign business, as a Kenyan Ghana tour operator, you can also create a profile on this virtual platform and do B2B matchmaking. But please check this website, virtualmart.tourismthailand.org, to see how you can improve your visibility in the Thai tour operator sector. All right. So that was about the Thai travel market. Are there any questions? If yes, then please use the chat box. No questions? Okay, then let's move on. The Japanese travel market, after China, the largest outbound travel market in the Asia Pacific region. Sorry. In 2018, 20 million outbound trips. This is a slide that I'm not, there's a lot of information in there, but this is actually the whole history of outbound travel of the Japanese market. It's an interesting slide that you can further look into, but I'm not going into detail right now. So when do the Japanese travel? They have like 3 main holiday periods: year-end and during New Year holidays, last week of December, first week of January, the Golden Week at the end of April, beginning of May, that is when they travel, and mid-August. Japanese, compared to other Asian countries that we're speaking about today, they have quite some national holidays, frequent long weekends, short holidays. So they have more time to spend on holidays, more days off. So when do the Japanese travel? I already mentioned, but when you look a little bit further, there are some other months where you see that the Japanese travel, and that is March and August. March is the spring holidays, and August is the summer holidays. And when looking at these different researches, it clearly shows that Japanese outbound tourism seems to be spreading over the whole year. And this is interesting for you to further look into. So what Japanese market segments can you approach during a specific month? And based on that, you can create your program. So again, this is another slide where you can see where the Japanese people travel abroad. So again, think about what the opportunities are in Kenya and what are the opportunities in Ghana. The Japanese good spenders, this is a slide that I already showed to you. So this is where you have the Japanese, all right? So what is going on? The Japanese market is different. The Japanese travel market is already very, very mature. The liberalization of travel for the Japanese started in the mid-60s, and actually in 1964. Compared to other Asian countries, the outbound travel in Japan is like old. They are more travel-wise. They've already traveled all over the world. They have good knowledge and therefore getting also more demanding. So more individual travelers from Japan, but they also are searching for a more variety of travel products. And niche marketing is, let's say, like already more well established for the Japanese market. So travel-wise and demanding, they are very well prepared people. Language still an issue. So if you want to work with Japanese travelers, a guide in your country that speaks Japanese is like a prerequisite. They are known as very good-mannered people. Ladies are the decision makers. Smiling is very important for the Japanese people. So for your guides, but also, you know, for your drivers, smiling is important to Japanese people. They're not so active people. They're a bit like more passive. They are very tech savvy people. Wi-Fi in the accommodation is a must. Enjoy yourself does not work for them. They need to be like entertained. So you need to offer them concrete activities. And very important for the Japanese people, and this also for the Koreans, we will see later on, is food. Food is very important for the Japanese people. And this is actually confirmed by a research that was done by the GTB. And food is what you see here. If the destination cannot offer nice food, then this might be a reason for them to not select the country as their next holiday destination. But the absolute #1 concern of the Japanese people is security. Safety, security, health is something that is very important to them. And I think now, even because we're in the COVID situation, it's even getting more and more essential to them. So for you as a Kenyan and Ghanese business in future, if you're going to work with the Japanese market, it's very, very important to be very transparent about health, safety, hygiene conditions in your country as part of the tour program. They want to have information about that. Language concerns, I already mentioned about that. So, all right. So what else? I already mentioned the Japanese market is a mature market. They started to travel abroad in 1964. Then the Koreans in 1989, and the Chinese are actually the baby of the Asian countries because they started to travel abroad in 1997. So Japan have here. So what do Japanese tourists expect from overseas destinations? Well, here you have it. Food again, local cuisine, warm hospitality that is related to the smiling that I mentioned to you, safety, security, good sanitation, clean accommodation, etc. So you can check this slide later on. Another research, safe and secure destination, rich history and heritage, good food, again, here you have it, local cuisine and produce is what they're interested in. Okay, so let's look at some segments. This is not the typical Japanese travel that you still have in the world. It's not the big groups anymore, you know? It's a mature market, as I mentioned to you. And the Japanese market is a very interesting market also for repeat visitors. So some of you in the chat box mentioned that you already had some Japanese guests in the past. So reaching out to your old Japanese guests might be something that you could think about, but check what kind of market intelligence do you still have from these old Japanese guests? What tour programs did they purchase from you in the past? And what could be an interesting new tour program for them that you've been developing, you know? So offer a new experience in your country and they might be willing to come visit you again. So some destinations, they are very aware of the repeat visitor factor for the Japanese travel market. So they are playing with this. And this is also what I would like to share with you because it's something that you could think about, you know? So for example, this is an example from Singapore, IDs for the repeat visitor. Board in Paris. This is I think it's a series of travel guides to offer the hidden in magazine in which you can learn or read more about the non-popular touristy sites that you have in Paris. So let's say like the off the beaten track experiences that you have in Paris to lure repeat visitors. So think about special interest tours for new experiences for Japanese repeat visitors. So maybe you can develop something around UNESCO World Heritage that you have, or visiting museums, or maybe you can do something with arts and maybe music or theater this is something like special interest tour programs that you could develop for these repeat visitors from Japan. Okay, this is a slide, you know, that repeat visitors can really bring you good money as a business. Okay, married couple travelers and solo travelers from Japan, also two emerging segments. Female travelers, culture-oriented girls. This is an interesting segment that is growing in Japan. Single women in their 20s and 30s with high spending power. So they start to travel more and more abroad. So lots of media in Japan, they have been focusing, concentrating on this growing market segment. Travel on their own, sometimes travel with the husband or with some other friends, female friends. 25, 45 years old, mid to high income, living in the urban areas. An interesting group to further look into. What they like, travel like a local. That is their main interest. Culture, local, authentic experience, but a local experience in a stylish way. So they want to visit the trendy restaurants, cafes, bars, that are not too touristy, shopping in nice boutiques. That is what they like. With a tour program that also includes some short trips to rural nature, some historical places for about healing, relaxation. The travel savvy senior traveler, Japan is one, I think, the most aging country of the world, together with Italy and Greece. Also, these Japanese seniors, they have money to spend. 60 years old and older, retired, and high spending power. So what do they like? World heritage, culinary experiences as well is something that is interesting for them. So these two groups, the travel savvy seniors and these culture oriented girls, they have some common drivers, and you can see them here. Culture, touching nature. Okay, 3-generation travel, three generation family fun. Another segment, growing, student travel, overseas school trips becoming more common in Japan for cultural exchange. This is something that you can look into later after the presentation. This is like a bit like the 2008 preferred travel destinations by the Japanese outbound travelers. And it gives you an impression why they like this specific country. So how to reach the Japanese market? Printed materials in the Japanese language is what they like. Detailed info, again, they like to prepare very well. Concrete travel programs is what they are looking for. But also social networks is something that is growing very fast. Facebook and Instagram. Instagram is especially interesting if you want to work with these Japanese young lady female travelers. They make a lot of use of Instagram. YouTube, Line is very big in Japan. Twitter, smartphone usage is sky high in Japan. Most Japanese travelers, they come from the Honshu Islands, 90% of the Japanese outbound travelers. And this is what you see in this big square. So from a geographical point of view, if you want to reach the majority, you focus on these areas. But working with the Japanese market, also B2B wise, is not easy. It's working with the Japanese travel market is something different. And I want you to look at this essential read. Go to this website to learn about how to work B2B wise with the Japanese travel market, because it's something different. Most of the times, Japanese outbound tour operators don't do direct business with a Kenyan inbound agent that you are. Mostly there's like an intermediary organization based in Japan that will be in between, so between you and the Japanese outbound tour operator. And this is what they called land operators. So it's like an intermediary organization for Kenya or from Ghana based in Japan that facilitates the business matchmaking between the two of you. Some questions from your Japanese business partner, again, demanding people. They want to have a lot of information from you. If you want to work B2B, JATA, G-A-T-A, that's the Japanese Association of Travel Agents. Look at their website, look at their members. There's also the Overseas Tour Operator Association of Japan, OTOA. So interesting tour operator associations to look at and see if you can access their member directories. The Tourism Expo in Japan is the main travel trade show to get access to the Japanese outbound travel market. So if you want to work with the Japanese market, this is the place to be. Okay, any questions? Because then I'm going to move to Korea. I see that we still have 15 minutes, which is short.
We have a question from Grace. She's asking, are business tours looked at as a segment?
Sorry, again?
Grace is asking, are business tours looked at as a segment?
I don't understand the question.
I think more of maybe Grace, if your microphone is working, you can elaborate.
Hello, Grace, are you there?
Maybe she means, is it classified, for instance, how you've been talking about family tours, single only groups, is business tours, the solo travelers? Okay, yeah. So is that also considered as a segment for the Asian market?
Yes, what I'm presenting today is like groups within the Japanese market, but also the Chinese market that are growing, that are interesting to look into. So groups or market segments, I mean, it's the same, but you need to know the details of these market segments. So if the market segments is the Chinese family traveler, you need to get more market intelligence. What do these families like? And how do I need to develop my product as a Kenyan or a Ghanese tour operator to make sure that it suits, that it matches their needs? So market segment, target groups, I mean, yeah, just give it a name. It's all the same.
Okay, and then we also have two questions from Francisca. The first one is regarding the solo travelers, are they backpackers or do they need organized programs?
This refers to these Japanese solo travelers. They need like concrete proposals. I mean, backpacking is not really what they are looking into. They're more looking into concrete programs that include a bit of the, you know, how to say, like the trendy stuff for these Japanese solo travelers, these females. So they want to have like a concrete proposal, which includes like accommodations that are more like stylish. They like to be in the urban areas to visit the trendy places, the trendy restaurants, things like that. And as part of the program, they like to have some short, maybe 1 day or a half-day excursion to a rural area, for example, because they also want to learn from nature and local culture. So not the backpacker, no.
Thank you. And then the other question is, will you also focus on MICE travel, especially meetings and conferences?
This is a trend that is specifically strong for the Indian market. So I will come back to that later. But if you want to know more of MICE, then you can also the person can send me an email afterwards, so I can further provide information about that. I need to be very selective because there's a lot to tell about these different countries, different travel markets. And MICE is something very specific, but yeah, I can share more information after the session. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I'll save Kwesi's, I guess he has more of a comment.
Yeah.
He says, given the relatively unprofitable nature of the domestic tourism in some African markets, for example, in Ghana, is the assumption that domestic tourism will lead to the recovery of the market compared to outbound and inbound following the easing of air travels?
Yeah, you know, I don't know the specifics for your countries, but in general, it's the domestic market that bounces back first. But I'm not saying that because of that you have to concentrate, or you have to do you have to work with the domestic travel market. That is really up to you. Some companies that I'm working with, they say, I don't want to touch the domestic travel market because it's not going to bring me any profit. Some other companies say, okay, I'm going to work with the domestic market just to keep my people, the staff that is still in my office, to keep them busy. But I'm not really hunting for big profits because it's not going to happen. And some companies say, yeah, but we need to be a little bit more critical. We need to have more market intelligence about our own domestic travel market. And for example, what you see in Myanmar is that the regular, say like Myanmar tourist, they are very low budget, very low profit margins. But some companies, they say, yeah, but we also have an expat community here in our country, which is also the domestic travel market, and they have money to spend. We also have some big companies, big corporates, that have money to spend, and you know, that is also part of the domestic travel market. So also within your domestic travel markets, you need to search for segments, specific groups, you know, and that is what we're also talking about today, and then make a choice. Yes, does that answer your question?
From Francisca, she said that was well responded. And then I guess if we have any more comments from Kwesi, he can just use the chat. We can go ahead with exploring the Korean market.
All right, yeah. And we still have 7 minutes. I hope you're all flexible and can stay a little. Oh, wait, actually, we planned 2.5 hours. I thought about 3 p.m., but we have more time. So great. Okay, let's continue. The Korean travel market. It's actually the South Korean travel market, of course. And this is the slide where you can see the history of South Korean outbound travel. And the red circle here is interesting because it actually was in 2018 that the South Korean travel market took over from India and became the second biggest or bigger than the Indian outbound travel market. I think this will change because India is growing very, very fast. So the pink line for India, I expect that this is going to change for the future, and go up quicker than what you can see here in this, actually in this slide. India market, we will talk about that later on. So for now, it's South Korea that is the second highest outbound travel destination from Asia Pacific area. Okay, so some further figures. The number of foreign trips by the Koreans. More and more Koreans like to travel abroad. You know, in 2018, more than 28.7 million Koreans traveled to a foreign destination. The outlook for outbound travel remains positive because there's a very high demand for travel. Okay, so when do they travel? They have 3 main holiday periods: Christmas and New Year's Eve, the Korean Thanksgiving, the Lunar New Year. So it's pretty much focused July and August. An interesting thing about the Korean market is that recent government initiatives have actually led to a decrease in the amount of working hours. The South Korean people are known to be like workaholics, but more and more free time is being part of society, and this is actually a significant driver for the growth of future outbound travel. So a very interesting market to look into. The Korean travel market has quite some commonalities with the Japanese. Experienced travelers, after Japan, the liberalization of travel, when you look at Asia, was in South Korea. Experienced travelers, especially the people from the capital, that's a spelling error, from Seoul, which is the capital city of South Korea. Well-prepared people, they plan in detail. Reading reviews is something that they do a lot. Own language also preferred. Good mannered people, very, very extremely tech savvy. They are used to very high service levels. Wi-Fi in the accommodation, high-speed connections is really like a prerequisite. And I think even for the Koreans, the item of food is very important to them, as well as safety and security. So the profile of the South Korean traveler is quite similar to the Japanese outbound traveler. And when you look at the Korean travel market, it's especially the Generation X and Generation Y that are interesting groups, or again, market segments that have very high potential, that are very interesting for you to look into concerning their interest, their high potential for outbound travel. So the Generation X, I'm part of that group, are the people born between the 1960s and 1980, and Generation Y, the people born between 1981 and 1995. Generation Y, also known as the millennials. So these, when you want to work, when you want to have more business from the South Korean travel market, Generation X and Generation Y are the main customer groups or market segments to focus on. So what are their needs, their top travel needs? As I already mentioned, South Koreans are known for being like workaholics. So when they go on a trip abroad, they want to relax. They want to get away from the daily stress and recharge their batteries. So South Koreans actually regard travel as a way of healing and maintaining their personal well-being. It's also pretty much about, when they travel, about personal enrichment, broaden their horizons and gain new experiences. So again, they like to plan everything in detail beforehand, and reading reviews is something that they do, and that influence their travel choice, like the Japanese. All right. So again, Generation Y, known as the millennials. So what to sell to these South Koreans, these Generation X and Y? Nature and outdoor activities is something that work very well for the South Korean traveler. Marine activities such as snorkeling, rafting, but also, because they're young people, extreme activities such as skydiving, bungee jumping are continuously attracting more South Korean travelers. As I mentioned, workaholics, when they go abroad, they also want to recharge the battery. So it's a bit of a mix of this relaxation, wellness, easy, being a bit more like passive and getting pampered, but also combined with these nature and between, you know, outdoor activities, extreme outdoor activities. That is a bit of the ideal tour package for these South Korean travelers. So when we talk about relaxation, it's not only stay at the beach and sleep or read a book. It's also about, for example, yoga treatments. It's about sauna. It's about the inner wellness. So some classes, yoga classes, or you know, therapy is something that can work very well for the South Koreans. One thing that is very important in terms of product development is that the ideal destination for the South Korean traveler are the ones that considered relaxation, but still close enough to the city centers, because they want to be close to the shopping streets and the urban sightseeing. So this is important for you to take into account when developing programs for these South Korean travelers. I already mentioned the commonality. Another commonality that they have with the Japanese market is culinary experiences. So of all the local experiences, Koreans enjoy culinary culture the most, including street food, local cuisine, but also cooking classes and foodie tours is something that they like to purchase from you whilst being in your country. So this is a picture from another destination, I forgot which one. This is an example of a cooking class. So that is something that you could also offer to them. And remind, when I was talking about the Chinese and the Japanese market, when we dealt with three generation travel, this is a picture that I took from an inbound agent based in Hoi An in Vietnam. And what they do is very funny. They offer an authentic 3-generation cooking class. So the whole family can have a really fun culinary gastronomic experience, which is fun for the grandparents, the parents, and the kids. So, you know, think about how to tailor-made these culinary experiences for different market segments. Again, if we're talking about these Japanese young lady travelers, the culinary experience should be a bit like trendy, fashionable, things like that. So when you offer them like a cooking class, it should be fancy food, but also in a restaurant where they have the cooking class, which is really a bit like more trendy. That could be more suitable for them. All right. So, culinary, local experience. Koreans also want to enjoy local experiences to help understand your country's culture. They're actually increasingly taking longer trips abroad to experience a destination like a local. And traveling like a local is a trend that again has been growing almost twofold every year. So this is another interest, a strong interest that the Korean outbound travelers have. The picture that you see here is a picture that I took from Ethiopia, Experience Ethiopia like a local. And actually it's not a good picture because as you can see, there's no travelers there. It's actually, it's a bunch of huts in a rural area, and it doesn't say anything. If you as a Kenyan or a Ghanese tour operator, if you're going to promote community-based tourism experiences or culinary experiences for the Koreans or the Japanese or whatever nationality, don't use pictures like that. Make sure that you show pictures where you see interaction, where you see people interact with the local people. So Koreans, Asian people interact with local people. Or use the picture that I used earlier in my previous slide, where you see the whole family, an Asian family or European family having fun during a cooking class. So the activity, the action, the interaction should be visible in your visualizations, the pictures, the photos that you're using on your website, but also in your brochures, for example. So people want to see the hands-on activities. So use the right visualizations for that. So what is important for the South Koreans is actually they like to brag about local experiences. So when they return back home, they like to brag and tell the stories. Hey, listen, wow, this is really special. You know, what I've been experiencing in Kenya or in Ghana. They like to brag about that. So also what you see in Korea is that more and more females are entering the business world. So more and more female business travel is what you see in Korea. And this is also what the Korean government is really promoting. So they're encouraging more involvement of females in higher management positions. So one of the expectations also for the South Korean travel market is that female business travel will increase in future. And this is a bit related to MICE travel. So I think it was Grace asking about the MICE travel market, no? So more women in South Korea are entering senior management ranks of Korean companies. And this is gonna have an impact on Korean outbound travel. All right, so like Japanese market, the Korean market also a more mature market. So also more free, independent travelers, or what we know as FITs. FITs, increasingly popular form of travel, more clients, you know, tailor-made packages, looking for bespoke itineraries, and selling to Korean FITs is an opportunity for you as a Kenyan or Ghanese travel agent to showcase your expertise and prove your value to these FIT clients. So these are the travelers, the FITs that you need to provide with a customized vacation. And, you know, agents also earn a good commission on lots of things that these FIT clients can pre-book, for example, online. So Korean culture slowly veering towards individualism, and this is driving an increase in the number of FITs. So a growing group. So be ready for the Korean FIT. So, this is some characteristics of FIT travelers. So, so for travel providers like you, internet is increasingly important to reach out to these Korean FIT travelers. So being visible online, having your website as a mobile-friendly website is something that is important for reaching out to Korean FIT travelers. But there's more that you can do to reach out to these Korean travelers. All right, so some other characteristics: the Koreans, experienced travelers, internet savvy travelers, they are very comfortable with booking online. This is a bit of a different with the Japanese market. Again, Korean language appreciated. They have the highest smartphone usage in the world. Digital tools, social media is growing rapidly, but Korea has a very unique social media culture. It's different from other countries. They have Facebook, yes, they are using Yahoo, etc., but they also have other social media platforms that they are making use of. And you need to be aware of that. So younger people have their different, have their own platforms that they are making use of. If you're interested to look into a little bit more older Korean travelers, you need to be visible on social media platforms like Kakao or Kakao Story and Dant. More than 75% of Koreans use portal sites like Naver and Daum when they are looking for information about their trip. So you see here, you know, these are different social, you know, platforms that maybe you as, I mean, me as European, I've never heard of Kakao or for example, Daum Cafe, I never heard about that. Naver Cafe, I never heard about that. So for me to reach out to Koreans, if I want to do business with Koreans, I need to learn more about how to be visible on these specific, unique social media platforms that the Koreans are making use of. Blogging is also something that works very well for the Koreans. So for example, on the platform called Naver, you can post blog articles, including reviews, and that is something that they are sensitive to. That works to get more business. Okay. Then working B2B wise with the Korean travel market, so Korean outbound tour operators, the National Tour Operator Association is called KATA, K-A-T-A, with more than 2,000 members. Here you have their website. The KOTFA, the largest international travel fair in Korea. This is the place to be to do business with Korean outbound tour operators. But I'm sure that also when you are going to join the virtual ITB Asia 2020 later on this month, check if there are Korean outbound tour operators joining the virtual event. If not, check the Qatar website and see what you can learn from the website. If you can access a member directory, so you can start checking the profiles of Korean outbound tour operators. But again, do the profiling very well. If you find a potential business partner, so a Korean outbound tour operator, look what they are doing. Is there any specific market segments that they are focusing on? For example, you found a tour operator in Korea and you learn from looking at their website that they're really into family travel. So what about yourself? Is this something that you're really good at? Is this something that you already offer? Or is it something that you can easily do and you know, you need to develop new products? So always do a good profiling of your business leads before start contacting them. You know, if you do your homework well and your profiling well, it also shows your professionalism, because you can, based on what you've learned, you can write a tailor-made message. Like, hello, we're a tour operator from Kenya. We're an inbound specialist focusing on family travel. We screened your profile by accessing your website, and we learned that you're a specialist for family outbound travel. We're a Ghana tour operator specialized in family travel. Please look at our attached PDF brochure, where you will find some awesome sample programs for families. I mean, that is how you work, you know. Ask them to meet with you at the ITB Virtual Asia, or maybe if they're not attending, ask for a Skype meeting on a date when it suits them and on a time when it suits them. So this is how you work B2B wise. Any questions? Please feel free to ask. Caroline, are there any questions?
So far, not yet.
All right. Okay, then let's move on to Singapore, the smallest country that we're going to talk about
yes.
today. Yeah, sorry, Caroline?
There's a question from Catherine. She's asking, how do we deal with the language barriers?
Yeah, it's interpreters, translators. I think, I mean, are you asking for the Korean market? Okay, no matter.
For all markets.
For all markets. Well, you know, if you're in Kenya or in Ghana, if you're receiving these, as I mentioned, Japanese, Koreans, the language is really an issue. So if the travelers arrive, the Japanese or the Korean guests arrive in your country, having you know, a guide, a local guide who speaks Korean or Japanese language is very important, you know. And I don't know about the situation in your countries, but yeah, hopefully you have some guides who speaks you know, these languages. Also, you know, when you want to do direct business like B2C with these countries, you will have to have information on your website in Japanese or in Korean to make sure that you know, that you can communicate with them. But yeah, also within your own office, will you have someone that can process the requests that come in from these consumers? If you work B2B wise with Japan and Korea, for example, it's different, because then you're dealing with business people, you know, and most of the times these business people, they speak the language. So when working B2B, most of the times language barriers are being solved automatically, because in the B2B arena, this is not playing, you know, that role anymore. And some tour operators from Japan or they send their own guide along with the group of Japanese people. So yes, so the travel, or sorry, the language issue is more of a problem when you want to do direct business with some of these Asian countries. Not for Singapore or Hong Kong or India, because they speak perfectly English. For example, the people from Singapore, they're really like multilingual people. So communicating with them in English is easy to do. So, and this is also my message for today. So when you look into the Asian market, you need to think about, okay, what country makes sense for me? Because working with China or maybe working with Korea might be too difficult for me. So then don't invest in these countries, but maybe go for Singapore or maybe go for India, because that is easier. So you have to make the right choices for yourself. And then maybe think like, can I do direct business, B2C? Can I do that? Or maybe work B2B. So you need to make these strategic choices based on the knowledge that you acquire. So the knowledge that you're now learning from me during this presentation, for example. But maybe after the presentation, this webinar, you have to do some additional research yourself to dig further into these markets and you know, based on that, make the right choice. And this is why I, you know, clearly emphasized earlier during this webinar, research first. Make sure you have good knowledge about, for example, the Japanese market, that you know all the ins and outs, that you know about the trends, the developments, the market segments that are growing concerning outbound travel, and make sure you have the right data over there. Look into the feedbacks that you've got in the past from your Asian clients, and look what you can learn from that. And based on all the data that you have, you can formulate the right strategy and develop the right products. All right? So shall we continue?
Yes, we can.
Yeah. All right. So Singapore, a small city state, 6 million people, a highly developed market economy. Singapore, one of the Asian tigers between the 60s and the 90s. So strong economic powers, and still together with South Korea, Taiwan, and Hong Kong. Singapore, you know, ranking year after year, very high as one of the easiest countries in the world to do business with. As I already mentioned, the majority of the Singaporean people, they speak more than one language. English and Mandarin are the most commonly used languages in daily life. Specific about the consumers in Singapore is that they're a bit like price sensitive. They compare the prices of tour packages. So they're quite value conscious, and do their homework very well in advance. So they're also active on or looking a lot on these comparative websites where you can compare the prices of for example, flight tickets, for example. So they're really looking critically at price. So when do they travel? Again, you see these differences in the travel period between these Asian countries. So for the Singaporean people, the traveling abroad is June and November and to December. This is where the majority of the Singaporean travel abroad. So what do they spend? Again, I mean, it's a small country. It's actually a city. So this is a bit about their expenditures. But again, I mean, they have very high average incomes. They spend very good money also in the destinations. And the Singaporeans, when they travel abroad, 1/3 of what they spend is on food. So it seems that for all the Asian countries that we are looking into, food is really, really important to them. So in 2018, Singaporeans made an average of 3 overseas trips and average spending almost like 2,000 American dollars per trip. To give you a bit of a feeling about what they are spending. If you look into European countries like France, Italy, Spain, their average spending is a bit like between 1,500 and 2,500 American dollars. And I think the Germans, for example, they spend about like, well, that's in euros, 2,400 euros, something like that. So you have a bit of a feeling about average spending. So what is going on in the Singaporean outbound travel markets? When you consult the researches that you have on the Singaporean market, something very remarkable that comes back over and over again is the trend of off the beaten track destinations. Especially the Singaporean millennials. So again, this is this generation Y that we talked about earlier. They are seeking off the beaten track destinations. And something very funny is that the Singaporean millennials, they have their eye on Kenya. In different research that I've been going through, is that there is an interest of Singaporean millennials in Kenya as their future travel destination. So there's a potential out there for you. Okay, so what else? Local experiences off the beaten track destinations. Singaporeans are increasingly seeking authentic travel experiences where they like to be part of the action. So they like to engage in local activities when they travel overseas. So when you're going to deal with if you want to work with the Singapore market, there's a high potential for cultural community experiences or community-based tourism. There's also a bit of, in the Singaporean culture, is a bit of a tradition in volunteering, in philanthropy, so donating, things like that. So this is something interesting that you can also look into. So when you bring Singaporean people to like local community projects or villages, and if there's somehow a way that they can donate to a local school or a project like construction of a new hospital, something like that, that is something that they are highly interested in. And this is also something that you can use for maintaining the relationship, because for example, if through an e-newsletter you can keep them informed about, hey, listen, like 5 years ago you visited this local village and you donated to for the construction of the new village hospital. Look at this right now, now we're 2 years later, and you can update them about the hospital. And this is also interesting to use for example, at the same time, giving them more information about some new exciting programs that you've been developing. And it can also work for creating repeat visitors. remind when we were talking about the Japanese market also repeat visitors. So this is something that you could be looking into. So authentic experiences and being part of local activities. This is also what the picture shows. Okay, so let's speed up a little bit. This is another research that I looked into from another organization. It's a Singapore Overseas Spending Survey. What makes a trip epic? And you see, local experiences, food and culture is something that they like, but also spontaneous and unexpected adventures. So they have an explorative nature. So off the beaten track, unexpected things during a trip is what really is, you know, makes them very excited. So how to reach them? Online bookings growing very fast. As I mentioned, sensitive to online reviews, and they do a lot of price comparison. So for example, platforms like Skyscanner is what they like to look into. Working B2B with the Singaporean market. You have the NATAS, which is the National Association of Travel Agents Singapore, and the Singapore Outbound Travel Agent Association. This one might be even more interesting for you. They have 25 members. Again, it's a small city-state, small country. These 25 members of the SOTA, they cover 90% of the Singaporean outbound travel market. So look at the website, see who are these outbound Singaporean tour operators, do profiling, do your homework, and see if you can reach out to them and do a nice business proposal. The ITB Asia in Singapore, well, you're going to join this year the virtual events. Normally you have the physical events, of course. The place to be also to reach out to the Singaporean outbound travel market. Okay, I'm going to do India a bit faster because it's now 3:30. The Indian travel market growing very fast. When do they travel? Well, here you have it. The peak travel season, school summer holidays, mid-April to end of June. Then they have some holiday seasons built around festival holidays, Diwali, traditional Christmas, December, January, but also March to July. For Indian travel markets, safety and security is the #1 travel motivation factor. Some characteristics, as part of their tour program, they often like to visit multiple destinations. So 2, maybe 3 countries is still what they're doing. In terms of accommodation, you see that they have above average interest in resorts, beach resorts, these kind of accommodations. They prefer, when offering food, they prefer hot meals and also buffet style for breakfast. Talking about food, a lot of Indian tourists are vegetarians. So this is also important for your recommendations to know. If you offer vegetarian meals, make sure that they add spices, because that is what the Indians like. They love shopping and do a lot of bargaining. Okay, what else can I tell here? Family travel. If you work with family travel, again, we already discussed about that. Attractions, activities for the children, the right activities, the right timing is very important. They are late bookers. All right. So what is going on? Also, the Indian market is increasingly maturing. So you see that one of the most important trends in recent years in the Indian travel industry is the personalization of travel. So more and more Indian travelers are seeking for tailor-made and bespoke travel programs, and they don't mind to pay extra for that, as long as it's a special, unique trip, including exciting experiences. They are willing to pay for it. Experiential travel is another trend in the Indian travel market. There's also an interest for cruise tourism, and yeah, it's a growing interest. MICE travel from India, one of the other key travel segments. That is travel from hospitals, pharmaceutical companies, automobile companies. Indians are investing in many countries all over the world, and so MICE travel is also a segment that will grow in future. For the person who asked more information about a MICE travel market, please contact me later on. Caroline can give you my email address. Luxury travel. India is estimated to generate over 2 million outbound luxury and MICE tourists annually. So that's an interesting group. Again, when you talk about the luxury travel market, think about, if you want to work B2B, what would be the best travel trade show for me to participate in? Because if you talk about luxury travel, the international luxury travel market might be a better choice for you. And the ILTM is again the marketplace where you can meet with the luxury travel agents from all over the world. And they have like different editions, also in different countries in the world. Here you see, this is a screenshot from the ILTM website. The event in Cannes is their flagship event, but they have other editions of the ILTM. So the ILTM in Singapore, for example, next year might be a good event to reach out to luxury travel agents from India, but also other Asian countries. You have the ILTM China, I already mentioned that one. So also interesting to meet with potential luxury travel agent partners from for the Chinese market. Very funny what I see coming back in different research on the India travel market is honeymoon travel. And so destination weddings is another segment of outbound travel from India that will continue, that is expected to continue to grow strongly. And what about Ghana? What about Kenya? You know, I know that there's already some honeymoon travel there, but is this something that you're good at? Is it interesting? The international honeymoon travel market it's a big market. If you look at other countries, for example, the USA and the UK are interesting source markets for wedding or honeymoon travel. And also for this specific market segment, there are some specific trade shows, not really like travel or tourism shows, but for example, Bridal Asia is going to take place in New Delhi and also in Mumbai later on, I think next year, so both in India. And these are trade shows about everything what has to do with honeymoon, wedding things. And travel could be also a part of these shows. I don't know, but maybe if you go as a Kenyan or a Ghanese tour operator to one of these bridal shows that you also have in the UK and USA, maybe that is a very good choice for you to reach out to, to business and for example, wedding planners, because wedding planners, these could be potential business partners for you as well. All right, so Bridal Asia, www.bridalasia.com. Extended family travel. I mean, we also discussed that a little bit when we talked about other Asian countries. Also a segment growing in the Indian outbound travel market. Let me see. Okay. So how to reach them? I mean, it's a bit blurry, but these are the leading information sources. Indians are a lot online. So online visibility for you as an African company is very, very important. So social media, also make sure that you are available there. This is a very interesting report. Look at it. It's about the social media trends India for this year. Internet usage is really, really high in India. I need to speed up a little bit because otherwise it's going to take too long. Another very specific characteristic of the Indian travel market is the power of online travel agencies. So also that is something interesting for you. So online travel agencies such as MakeMyTrip.com, Jatra.com, Expedia, and EasyGo One, their market share in the Indian outbound travel market is growing and growing. Online payment is still a bit of an issue because of low credit card penetration and the low average credit limit per person. So that is a bit of a, how to say, like a blockage that is still there for the Indian travel market, but improving also rapidly. Working B2B with the Indian market, there's the OTOI AI, the Outbound Tour Operator Association of India. There's an Adventure Tour Operator Association of India. And this is where the Indian outbound tour operators, also the inbounds, are united. So interesting business platforms, channels, websites that you definitely have to look further into if you want to do B2B business with the Indian travel market. Doing business with India is a bit different. These are some things that you need to keep into account. The whole world is knocking on India's door. So even if you represent a major company, you're not that important to Indians. Everyone is chasing them. A bit like the way of doing business is a bit messy with the Indians. They're not always that focused. So you need to be very patient with them. Talking about the tourism business, 60% of India's outbound tourism originates from Mumbai and South India. So if you want to penetrate B2B, the Indian travel market, the key cities to focus on Mumbai, New Delhi, and Bangalore. Secondary cities, well, you have them here. Then the major events for the Indian market, well, you have them here. ITB India next year could be very interesting for you. I think it's April or May. I always mix these two up. You have the ITB India and the ITB China, and the one is taking place in April, the other one in May. So events, interesting B2B events to penetrate the Indian travel market. Yeah, so I had to rush because it's already 3:43 p.m. I see. Are there any questions?
Hi Marlon, thank you so much. We have a question from Paul. He's asking, is the Asian market opened up now post-COVID?
No, I mean, traveling is still limited for many countries all over the world, including many Asian countries. So international flights is still a big issue. One of the things for you as a tour operator to remain up to date is to look into the news channels that you have available, you know. So for example, what I consult a lot is for example, you have the dashboards from the UN World Tourism Organizations where you can read about what is going on in the world. You can even select countries to read about what is going on. And, you know, you need to be on top of the news. You know, what is going on? Are the people allowed to travel again? What about starting up the international flight connections again? You really, really have to absorb all the relevant travel information that you need for these countries. I don't know about your ministries, for example, or you know, your national tourist boards, for example. Do they provide you know, market intelligence about what is going on in the world, what countries have reopened for tourism, etc. You really need to access this information, you know, to make sure that once a country can travel again, that you can that you can grab your piece of the market, you know.
Okay. And I see Mary Gikingo has her hand up. Hi, Mary. You can just unmute your mic and then you can ask your question directly to Marlon.
Hi, I was just saying thank
No.
you for the very insightful presentation.
My pleasure. I'm happy to hear that. Yeah. It's a lot of information for you to absorb, and I can imagine that many of you feel very tired now.
So maybe we can get the presentation how quick, because I think that's very important when you're making business matches.
I can send the presentations out today.
Thank you.
That'll be possible.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
You will receive the presentation as a PDF file.
Yeah.
I will try to compress the pictures a little bit so that the size of the file is being reduced a little bit. In the current condition as a PowerPoint template, it's like 20 MB. So this is going to be a little bit challenging. So I need to reduce, and then I will send the PDF file to Caroline so she can share with you. If it's still the file size is still too high, too big, then maybe you can download from somewhere. I don't know, but definitely you will get the slides.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay.
We have any other questions.
Yes, we have a question from Nancy. She's asking, how do you deal with spamming and fraud in the Indian market?
Ooh. This is, I mean, this is a challenging question. But do you mean like fraud from that? For example, you get like business proposals from Indians, and they want you to reply on that, or what do you exactly mean? Because I mean, spamming is I mean, it's an international thing. I also get a lot of spam in my email, in my inbox, and you know, that's the moment also when I discuss with the IT person within my company about, you know, can you check into the security, or, you know, can we block this organization of person so we don't receive emails anymore? What is exactly the issue from your side?
Hi, Nancy. If you can unmute yourself and elaborate more, please feel free.
It's not there anymore.
Hi, this is Moses on behalf of Nancy.
Okay.
The question was regarding the fact that it's sometimes very hard to work with them.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know who would be genuine or not, considering that you find an email, then your antivirus in your laptop to start, giving all these notifications that something might not be right.
Yeah.
And yes, I don't know how safe or how easy is it, like you would say, to work with them.
Yeah. Well, as I mentioned, doing business with Indians is a bit challenging. I mean, they're not really like focused, which is part of their nature, their culture. So they're a bit jumping from A to Z and from Z to Y, and things like that. But I have the feeling that your question about spamming and viruses that come in from India is more a bit of a technical issue within your company that is related to email and digital things, digital traffic. And this is what I not really can reply to, because I'm not an IT expert. I mean, I have my IT person within my own company, and he's dealing with firewall and security of our email programs and website, etc. So he's the technical IT website email person dealing with security issues. So this is something that you could also be looking into. What I would like to add now is what an issue that I had like 2 weeks ago. One of the companies that I'm coaching in Myanmar, they got a business proposal from a company from another Asian country. And she was asking me, the lady from Myanmar, is this safe? Is this secure? And I said, I don't know. I don't know them. Did you check the website? Is there a person behind it? Did you check if they're active on Facebook or LinkedIn? Are they registered? Do they have a national registration number at the National Chamber of Commerce? What about reviews that you can find online? Or for example, if I get a business proposal for someone, I always ask for references, because I want to check their references. How do they feel about this company that is now approaching me? Because I need to, have more knowledge about this business. And I also request for, well, this is now difficult because of the COVID. A personal visit is always the best, of course, but if it's not possible, have a Zoom meeting online so you can look each other in the eyes and talk, that at least you see a person or maybe a team, on the screen. So so references, personal visits, or like these virtual meetings that we are having now a lot because of the COVID. It's very important, checking reviews. This is all information that can educate you to get more data about this, potential business partner. So I hope this answers your question.
Yes, Moses says thank you.
All right. Other questions?
This is the last round of question and answers, so please feel free to take the opportunity to ask Marlon any questions you have on market intelligence.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, a lot of information actually. I mean, this is a webinar that could even cover one day. So my challenge for you was to pick out the essentials for these different Asian countries that we've been talking about today. And I hope that it gave you better insights about what is going on in these markets, trends, developments, potential market segments. And during my presentation, I also try to give you some, like ideas or tips about how to create products for specific groups in Japan or, China. remember when I was talking about Chinese family travel and this angry girl, you know, that was for you. I added that slide for you to make you very well aware of when you work with Asian families or, you know, families, it's a different area. You know, you really need to know what you are doing. Also sharing with you some characteristics of market segments, specific things that they like. So I hope you have improved website insights. Again, you will get the PowerPoint presentation will be shared with you. So if there are no further questions.
There's one more from Ruth.
Sorry.
One more from Ruth. She's asking, how do we go about the costing, especially on the Chinese market?
Sorry, the costing? You mean?
I guess pricing in terms of the Chinese market.
Yeah, well, you know, when we talked about the Chinese market, we talked about this first wave, we talked about the second wave, and this first wave was mainly about these, let's say, like cheap tourism from Asia, you know, the very price sensitive Chinese travelers. And I mean, they are still there. I personally, I don't think that this is, you know, really a market that you should be chasing for. I think it's much more interesting to look into these, you know, second wave market segments that are now popping up, the market segments that explained to you about. And these are groups of Chinese consumers that have much more money to spend. And, you know, you can offer higher prices, but it's about developing the right program for them. And if it really matches their criteria, if it ticks their boxes, these Chinese, these new segments, they are really, you know, willing to pay more for it. They have more to spend, so they will pay the price that you ask them, as long as you can motivate it. You know, we are more expensive, but we really look very critically at your demands, at your needs, at your requirements. I mean, I cannot say you have to ask like $2,000 or whatever, you know. It also depends on competitor analysis that you do, because this is also important, of course. So what other Kenyan or Ghanese companies are dealing with the Chinese market? What about their price setting? What about their pricing? And how are you going to play with that? Do you want to be cheaper? But if you want to be cheaper, you might have to compromise on the quality of the tour program. Is that something that you would like to do? Or maybe you say, no, what they are doing is not what I want to do. I want to chase the really, the high-end Chinese customer that really wants the top luxury that we have in Kenya or in Ghana. You know, it's a different group that you could be you know, looking into, and they don't care about price at all, you know. And for example, I don't know, for example, maybe some of you are bird watching specialists. Bird watchers is also, I mean, also in Asia, you have a bird watching societies. Bird watchers also, they don't care that much about the price. You just pay it because they want to see that specific bird within your country. They don't care about it. And, you know, this is actually the message that I've been repeating several times. Look into, it's not about volume, it's not about quantity. Look into the quality of these market segments. What market segments can you cater for? What are you good at? And try to focus on these market segments or niche segments that really bring you good profit margins, because it's all about that, you know.
Okay, there are no more questions in the chat, and I think maybe we can conclude. and then I can stop the recording too.